This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with the daily news update. Just getting back from the gym, second day that the gyms are open here in Ontario. SmackDown last night was up 33% to a 0.6 rating for the first SmackDown back with fans. It is interesting to note that despite them being back with fans, according to reports, WWE continued to use the fake crowd noises on last night's SmackDown, which is bizarre. Something else bizarre is the way WWE debuted the returning Davey Boy Smith Jr., who I guess is going to be known as Harry Smith. Of course, he is a two-time WWE Tag Team Champion, multiple-time New Japan Tag Team Champion, and former Great North Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. He lost that title to the Blood Hunter earlier this year. But Smith teamed with Austin Theory in a dark match to defeat Odyssey Jones and Zion Quinn. Then after SmackDown aired, WWE uploaded a post-match interview online where he basically talks about how he's grown in the time that he was gone with the company and happy to be back. But to debut somebody in a dark match of all things and then just put an online interview talking about a match where he doesn't even say he won the match, I don't think, from what I recall online after. That's a little disappointing. I was hoping that they would maybe make vignettes of him or something, then bring him back with a TV match where he goes over strong rather than a random dark match. So hopefully this is not a sign of how he's going to be used this WWE run, because I remember his first WWE run, they debuted him just being involved in a pull-apart. And I was thinking to myself, really? They're going to debut him being involved in a pull-apart? So I don't know. He did manage to do his vertical suplex in the dark match in one of the pictures that were released from the dark match from last night's SmackDown taping. So good luck to him as Piper's saying hello. She usually keeps quiet during these. Chelsea Green, who was injury prone in WWE when they released her, apparently has broken her wrist for a third time now. So maybe WWE made the right decision getting rid of her since she's already injured again. NWA put out a congratulations to Nick Aldis on apparently holding the title for 1,000 days and said only 5 men in NWA history have done that. When was the last time Nick Aldis had a memorable title defense? It was Cody Rhodes years ago. You can't compare his title reign to the Ric Flairs and the Jack Briscoes and the Harley Races and the Dory Funks. He hardly defends the title. And the last NWA pay-per-view only had about 500 buys total. And it had 50 people in attendance. But the next night for their TV tapings only had 30 people in attendance in Atlanta, a major city. They couldn't even sell out 50 people. So that's pretty sad. And I wouldn't be celebrating his title reign and comparing it. It's an insult to compare that guy's title reign. He's the booker. The guy that's the champion is the booker for the NWA. Ric Flair was not the NWA booker when he had the title. So I think that's pretty angering, actually, and insulting. There's apparently the first ever, title with no gender now, and this has got in the news today. Chaotic Wrestling put out this statement saying they're proud to announce the inception of a brand new title centered around inclusivity, sorry. In a post-speaking out world, it is more important than ever to create a safe environment for people to train, watch, perform, and engage in professional wrestling. Chaotic and the New England Pro Wrestling Academy aim to be at the center of that movement. The Pan-Optic Championship will be taking the place of what was the Chaotic Women's title as we look to remove any gender bias from affecting our matchups or the overall perception of wrestlers involved. Therefore, the Pan-Optic Championship will be genderless, non-binary, and without exclusion. Those battling for the title will share these ideals, that it's a wrestling match should be judged on the quality and content of the match and the talent of the wrestlers competing with no regard to the identity of either individual. I have zero interest in watching that. I do understand that the man versus women wrestling is popular these days, and there's transgender wrestling out there, but I just hate how political wrestling has become. It was supposed to be a place of escape. That's one of the reasons I liked wrestling. You could escape politics. You could escape your job. You wouldn't have to worry. You could yell whatever you want at the wrestlers. Now you have wrestlers like Sami Zayn who get offended at what fans call them and actually have fans ejected for hurting their feelings, for calling them names. The era of like the tough pro wrestler is gone. It's sad. So I am very saddened by the state of the business. Ksenia, who I interviewed yesterday, and I'm sure she'll be all for that title. And again, I don't criticize people for their opinions. Everyone's entitled to their opinions and to like what they want. But I did interview her yesterday, and she appeared as a ring announcer for Mission Pro Wrestling, Thunder Rosa's company today. So congratulations to her. She's staying in the U.S. for the next few months from Russia, and it seems to be working out well for her. She's grown a lot on social media. I don't often do this, but a fan emailed the Twitter at the Hannibal TV with a question that actually has been asked to me before, and I've never answered this publicly, so I will answer it. This fan wanted to know how stink faces in wrestling work. Obviously, you can't fake it, but how is that decided on? And you know of a wrestler who has refused to both give one or take one? I'm sure Zack Ryder would love them, but well, Zack Ryder actually took one from Luke Gallows when he was completely naked, in a story that I've told a bunch of times, which is what led to Bill DeMott's firing from Deep South Wrestling as a trainer the first time, because he allowed that to happen. And Ryder not only volunteered for it, but enjoyed it. He had a big smile on his face. How that works is, well, if you're in WWE working with Rikishi, generally the wrestlers are under contract, and they don't want to jeopardize their contract by saying no to something like that. So they would just do it, whether they like it or not. However, if you're a wrestler like Steve Austin, who's high up on the card, I don't recall Steve Austin ever taking a stink face, because he could have said no and been high enough on the card to not be punished. Same with the kiss my ass. Like when William Regal had to kiss Vince McMahon's ass. Like that idea was obviously presented to him and he was fine with it. But at the same time, if he had said no to that, he may not have lasted with the company as long as he had. So ass kissing paid off 100% in Steve Regal's case. But on the independent scene, you could say no to that for sure. I remember when I was wrestling in England, there was a wrestler that did that in his matches, and I liked him. His name was the Flatliner, and I have no issue with him. But I remember telling the promoter, don't book me against that guy. I don't want to take that move, because we were making like 60 pounds a night, and it wasn't worth it. Maybe if I was under a 400,000 a year contract, 500,000 a year contract, and I had to wrestle Rikishi, and that was part of it, I'd be like, sure. But I'd need to be making serious money to want to do something like that. I certainly wouldn't volunteer or book myself. I never booked Rikishi in a match against Hannibal in Great North Wrestling. I'll get into some of your questions other than that Twitter one, which follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The Hannibal TV. We do stream most of the live streams on Facebook, and the live streams are ad-free on Facebook. Stevie's talking about they're going to let 15,000 fans into the Blue Jays games. Let's get a GNW show going. The problem is the arenas don't want to let us book Great North Wrestling. I've contacted all the arenas the Great North Wrestling normally run. There's two reasons for this. Some of them actually have vaccination clinics going on in the arenas, and others, because the Ontario lockdown has lasted so long, they're afraid that the guy that runs Ontario, Doug Ford, is going to put us back on lockdown, and they don't have to worry about refunds. But there is a venue that I'm working on right now that that might let us. I'll know more next week. But I definitely want to get Great North Wrestling going again. The fans really want to see it. James, we talked about Harry Smith returning to WWE in detail at the start of this. David likes AEW better than WWE. Naval Sailor checking in. Pedro is not a fan of Harry. Say what you want about him. In my opinion, he is the best technical wrestler in the world today in pro wrestling. And he's also big and muscular. So he's a legitimate wrestler. So I'm glad to see him back in that company, at least making the big money. Jamie, I'm doing all right. I'm happy the gyms are back going again here. Mixed Partial Farts mentions that WWE always pipes in crowd noises. Maybe the only era they didn't do that for was The Rock and Austin. They wouldn't have had to do it in the 80s era either, as many wrestlers have said, and I experienced being on some shows with Hogan and The Warrior. Both of the crowd noises were deafening. And I've said this a million times, but I remember that Intercontinental title match when the Warrior was Intercontinental Champion. All the ring announcer would have to say is it is now time for an Intercontinental title match, and the crowd would just explode because they knew the Warrior was about to come out. M97, I need to go back to WWE. I'm better than 90% of their roster. I'd be a great monster heel. I'm retired. I don't like being bossed. I like working for myself. I don't do well with authority. That's just a fact. I really don't. In wrestling or regular jobs. Exercise and freedom. Heard Piper barking down there. Says hello. Mixed Partial Farts again. Why not just introduce him as someone coming in or coming up? I don't know. Boulder 29 says Chelsea Green sucks. She was supposed. She did do an interview with me before she went to WWE. She was supposed to wrestle for Great North Wrestling before, but she missed her flight and didn't make it to the show, sadly. She was actually supposed to wrestle Lady Yasmin, so that match would have been a very interesting match. It's too bad it never happened. Howard, damn, I thought you and Harry were boys. Are you mad that he went back to WWE? Why would I be mad? Why would I want anyone on the independent scene where promoters are mostly shady? There's more shady than not. And I'm not going to say how much he made on the independent scene, but he's going to make a lot more in WWE. I know in MLW, he was making very little, and they weren't even paying him during COVID, but they weren't letting him wrestle anywhere else. So he needs to make his money while he's still in his prime. Gary, you're welcome. Naval Sailor, no, it's barely around. Nobody cares about it. That's why I find it offensive that Corrigan is trying to compare that guy that's not over at all to the greats. James says there is no comparison to this NWA and the old one. I fully agree. And they have no respect for kayfabe. They care more about taking pictures with the heels and faces together at the end of every taping than actually making angles that draw. Mike, he would never face the Blood Hunter. Nick Aldis would not even face Hannibal. And the Blood Hunter is far more dangerous than I ever was, far more deranged. So don't expect him to ever face someone like the Blood Hunter who would just eat him for lunch, legitimately chew him up and spit him out. There was a tip. Let me get to the tip. Pubert says that NWA title is just a publicity stunt. Mike says it was only created for a cheap pop. Maverick is talking about the, I don't know if you're talking about the NWA or the gender neutral title, but he says it's garbage. Brian says, can you imagine someone like Terry Funk needing a safe space to work and train? I miss the days where wrestlers were supposed to be the toughest people on earth. And everyone thought they were the toughest and craziest people on earth. And that's why they paid to see them. Now they're babies, and I'm sorry. I don't care. I'm already barred from every company, so I really don't care if I get heat for saying that. But there's more pussies in wrestling than there are actual tough guys these days. Maria, thank you for the $5 tip. And I'm glad you enjoyed both the Doctor of Style Slick Shoot interviews and the Trevor Orndorff interviews. Danny, I'm not even wrestling anymore, so that's a silly question. Kurt likes Chelsea Green. Danny, yes, Orndorff's son did say that Paul's other son has been in and out of prison, I believe. So sorry to hear that. Stevie TV, imagine Terry Funk wrestling for an intergender title. Yeah. Walter says, happy birthday to Jerry Bostic, the owner of World Class Pro Wrestling, who is my co-host of the World Class Cast that usually airs on Thursday, but we took a week off this week. Next week, we'll have Bruce Tharp on, who coincidentally was the guy that sold the NWA rights to Billy Corgan. Speaking of the NWA, and I guess he's going to have some involvement in the World Class pro wrestling relaunch, that the big relaunch show is October 3rd in Wichita, which I'm curious to know who the Bloodhunter is going to wrestle on that one. The rumor is it's going to be either Rhino or the Sandman. DC feels that the girl in the picture with the Panoptic title appears to look uncomfortable. I don't know, man. We're living in a strange world. Strange world. WWE has fired Kenice Mobley. Thanks for that tip, James. I have no idea who that is. The Bahana, I wonder if they'll give Harry a gimmick with a bulldog mascot. The moment I saw that promo he did last night, I wish they would do this. I know it sounds silly, but he does such a great Dynamite Kid impression. If he just always talked in the British accent in WWE, that would get over huge. And it's too bad they didn't do that. I know it sounds silly, but I really, truly believe that would have been a great gimmick. Stevie TV would like to see the Sandman against the Bloodhunter in Wichita, October 3rd. Well, we're going to find out. I do know that one's going to be a pay-per-view too, so it's going to be interesting. So I wish everyone a good night. I'm going to have my dinner. Sushi tonight. Bye.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free